please come up here.
Hello, good evening. How are you? Did you know you were coming to a rally today? Did you sign up for that?
Rally?
Yeah, it's a political rally. No, it's a spiritual rally.
Okay.
We have those too. Penny, I think it's a little bit too high, maybe. Or, I don't know, I can't hear myself. All right, so let's begin. Can we discuss these things socially? Politics, religion? You think these are topics that are like kind of like up for discussion?
Yes.
What happens when, yeah?
Yes.
Yes? Nobody has a problem with discussing politics or religion in any social group. Somebody laughed. A few spirits and and you laughed. Share a little bit. What is it? Do you think does it create problems?
The majority of the time, when people start to talk about politics, it's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
One's going to be right, another one's going to be on the left. And religion is, everybody knows is a issue.
So what? I mean, this is very common to get this idea that, let's say, within family, sometimes within a certain group of friends, we can't discuss politics, we can't discuss religion, because it creates problems. It creates discussions, fights sometimes. I even know families who, split over these topics. But why do this? Why do we have these disagreements? I think many people are under the impression that when someone disagrees with their point of view, they are somehow rejecting that person, rejecting them, and not. So it becomes difficult to talk about these topics, and sometimes we tend to discuss not so much about ideas, but about people, and that makes it difficult too. We personalize the things. Now, I like this idea. I read, being taught to avoid talking about politics and religion has led to a lack of understanding of politics and religion. And it'd probably be better to learn. We should learn to have a civilized. It says civilized, but a kind of discussion where we don't end up fighting or just splitting over those subjects. And why I bring this up, and we'll go a little bit into detail, the topic today is politics, it's because of the importance. It's because of what it represents, what it means, and the impact that it has on us. Now, we should know that debating ideas it does not mean judging. It does not mean judging people, or it does not mean judging opinions. Those are two different things. You can debate with someone no matter what they think, no matter what their ideas are and their opinions are. You can do that. The fact that you discuss and you debate with someone, even the fact that you understand that someone has a different position, it never means that you agree with that. You don't need to agree with someone. But I don't know, to me, it's kind of like a reaction we tend to have, that we think that if we engage in a conversation with someone who has a certain group of ideas, we would be agreeing with them or something, or we would be giving them a certain value. And I mean, to some extent, that's true. We're giving them the same value that we have as human beings. But unfortunately, when it comes to these topics, we tend to not even do that. If you think about it, we tend to feel that people who have certain ideas that are not the same ones that we have, sometimes we don't even consider them at our same level. And if you think about it, that's a limitation. To me, that's sad, but that's how I see it. But what I think it is, it's a limitation. Let's go into it. What is politics? I want to ask you what you think. For you, what is your idea of politics? Anna.
The party you represent?
Party. Okay.
Oh, waste of time.
Oh, waste of time?
Yeah.
Okay. So we should go now?
Huh?
We should.
Should go home.
I mean, who else? Nobody. So I take this is like not something you think about often or at all?
We do think about all the time. I do. I think about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. It's something that is in our lives every single minute.
All right.
Right? Every single minute, because we live under, when you say politics, it's government politics. Oh, I see what you're doing. I got you. Let me shut up then.
No, I mean, no, that's interesting. I believe that we're doing politics right now here.
I see.
And not just because we're talking about
Got it.
politics.
There's politics and everything. Like he says that when you're at your job or whatever, there's always a hierarchy and then there's politics going on with your clients or whatever type of service you give. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain ways and you have to go about things due to the politics.
With
Mhm.
your spouse, with your kids.
Yep. So we can agree that politics is pretty much everywhere in our lives. But I've sensed from your answers and from what you get from this word in society, that we have a kind of a low esteem for the word politics and what it represents. We talk about parties, we talk about government, and we tend to be not pleased with it. So we tend to avoid the subject, right? And that's what I want to start tonight, broadening the idea of politics and bringing here the fact that being something that it's all over the place, present in our lives, politics could be defined. I mean, there are many definitions of it, but could be defined as any set of activities that are associated with group making decision. So wherever there are two or more people that have to talk about anything, there you have politics. How do we decide? How do we engage even? That's politics. So pretty much everything, right? And being so important, that's why I wanted to bring this topic today.
So
Now-
you're saying that every time we think about politics, we have a narrow mind about it, and instead of seeing the politics what we really mean.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point a good place to start with this discussion. I think we tend to do that, and I think when we do that, we're missing a bigger picture, and more important, we're missing how that affects our day-to-day life and affecting our present moment, our day-to-day life being our present moment. It is really affecting our evolution, our progress, and many other things, our own, even our spiritual life. It's everywhere in our life, so it has an impact on us, a deep one. So if that's the case, I think it merits at least to dive a little bit into it and think and reflect upon the subject a little more than just saying, well, the government, what am I going to do? But it is, and this is the first kind of aspect of politics, is the act of governing, making decisions, government, art, and science. So governing is an art too. It's a science too. It's studied, and it has many implications. We may not like it. We may not really like the system we have right now, or how it works, or how it is implemented. But the truth is, we make it, and we'll see a little bit about that too. Now, as you have well said, it's any relationship between people. That's politics, and that's why we should talk about it. If I just wanted to bring the origin of the word politics, to me it's always interesting to know where a word comes from, because that gives us some information about it too. And where it comes from is from Greek, and in Greece, polis was referred to as, for them, like the city or the place where people would live together. So it comes from politico, and that means anything that is related to the common life of the citizens. So again, same meaning. Now, we have two different ways of seeing politics throughout history and any given time. Main ways of seeing politics. One, it would be the art of conquering, maintaining power, and exercising that power. So that's one way to look at politics. Another one would be the art of reaching an agreement, of getting to a consensus when we have to make a decision. So two distinct ways of seeing the same thing. Then from each one of them, of course, it derives a lot of political systems and such. But those are the two main paradigms, let's call it, of politics. To keep on understanding, I want to bring a very brief history of politics, because if I bring even a brief history of politics, we'll be here for a few weeks. So, interesting facts. This is a researcher, Frans de Waal, Dutch origin. He came to the United States and he studied apes, particularly chimpanzees. He has a book, very interesting book, about the social organization of chimpanzees. So what he said is that chimpanzees engage in politics because they do that through social manipulation to secure and maintain influential positions. If we take chimpanzees out of that, I mean, we're talking about what we see every day, right? Call it Congress or presidency or United Nations or a company where you have a hierarchy also. Hey, I could even say here at the center, we could identify with that. So we're not that creative. This we get from evolution and from apes. Sorry, I did something. Anyway. Now, in our history, in what we have recorded and what we can study, and of course, politics, we had in cavemen that were nomads, they had politics already. But going a little bit into organized politics, we have these two civilizations, which are the first where we have kind of like established political systems in Sumer and in Egypt around the year 3000 before Christ. And then we go to Greece, 500 before Christ, where we get for the first time a word that we're very familiar with and which is related to politics, and it's important, and it's democracy. That's we say that democracy, the system as we know it, started in Greece. So it's a very important landmark. Now, another landmark that I thought was important, and this is where we finish our very brief history of politics, it's around the year 1648, and this happened in Europe. It was always under one war or another. So this is it's called the 30-Year War. Anyway, England, Spain, France, everybody at war all the time. After this one, it happened something interesting. For the first time in history, in modern history, the different territories, I don't think we can call them countries yet as such, but these different nations, they agreed that they would have some borders, and that whatever happened within those borders would be a matter of their own business, let's say. That's, of course, we can relate to that, because today we keep on discussing that. Should one country mind the business of another country? Are humanitarian reasons a reason to do that or not? What's going to happen now in Ukraine, where one country seems to be wanting to mind the business of another country? We're still on these topics and subjects, but this is like the point where we as a planet, or as a civilization, better say, we started to think along those terms. Now, this is important because many years went by, and I've mentioned democracy as one of the, let's say, political systems. And again, I want to stress the fact that anything that we have in terms of government, in terms of international relations, all of that, it's just a reflection of us. So we are creating whatever we have at each moment, and it's our responsibility to have something better. So we can say, oh, there's nothing I can do, we have this kind of government or system, but really that's reflecting the whole of us. Now, why I say this is because I found these graphs very interesting. Just, we could say a few years ago, some of you were not born by then. I think, I'm afraid most of us were. And just a few years ago, or just a few decades ago, this is the map, the political map of the planet. What this represents is its types of government in different countries. And that to make that map, this organization, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, what they did was to get a number of variables, a number of questions that they went through, like whether a country has open and free elections, whether there's open and free press, whether there's transparency in the government, a number of questions that they evaluated. And according to that data, in 1975, you can see most of the world is orange. And orange, if you can't read it, it's authoritarian regimes. So basically dictatorships of one type of another or another. Those in kind of dark green, which are not many, like part of Europe, Australia, US, and Canada, are what's considered high-performance democracies. So those who are healthier in the democracy. But most of the countries are dictatorships, and that includes Brazil, and that includes Spain at the time. And that semi-includes Portugal. It says hybrid regime, but most of them. Now, just a few decades fast forward to almost today, the 2020, and this is what we have. So this really caught my eye because I think a lot has changed in this past like 40, 50 years. We come from this world and now we are on this world where you can see many more are green, particularly South America, India, the southern part of Africa, and practically the whole of Europe, and almost all of Europe. And that's I think that change. Again, it's interesting, and to me, it gives the idea that maybe that pessimism that we have, it's unfounded. We should look at it, we should have a bigger picture. We are moving forward, we are progressing, even if sometimes we would like it to be better, even in those dark green countries like the US, which, you know, if you go by the data, it's a very healthy democracy. It may not seem so sometimes for many people. Now, what kind of like what made me start thinking about this talk and a little bit deeper about the topic was to come across this paragraph from a book. It's called Minutes of Wisdom. This book is a number of reflections on many different topics about life. Really, really nice book, really deep, and it's very good to, you know, go to it once in a while and reflect about different things. Now, I want to read you this on politics. It says, if you have embarked on the path of politics, know that it was no accident. God has placed the destiny of your country in your hands. Awaken your inner conscience to assume this tremendous responsibility. Much has been given to you, and therefore much will be asked of you. Don't let vanity and personal interest distract you from the mission that brought you into the world. Lead the homeland to happiness and peace. I want to ask you here, what does this make you think? What does this mean for you, if anything? Okay, a message for the leaders of the world. Mm-hmm.
Us, because we are all involved in politics.
Exactly. So, thank you. I read this thinking about my whole life, like, you know, what I do in my work, what I do at home, what I do with my friends, what I do here, and not necessarily having to be a leader or what we think it's a leader, but really in anything I do, I'm showing my example, whatever it is. So the responsibility that I have, it's really big. And since we've established that we all do politics, now this made me think, what would be the qualities of a good politician or good politics? What would be good politics, so that I can think, you know, on those terms for my life. Now I want to ask you that question too. For you, what I have mine. I'm going to present to you what I think. But what would be the good qualities of a politician or of politics for you? This is personal. There's no right or wrong. Morals. Mm-hmm.
Common cause.
A common cause.
Yeah, if you're a politician and you look at the common cause, not to asked you before.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Like what we say, the common good, right? Or
well, is you know, when you're doing something, because I think, in my opinion, we get caught up on politics, on the government, right?
mm-hmm.
I'm a government where I am.
You are a government where you are.
Right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
whatever I'm doing, my work or my business or
Mm-hmm.
whatever I'm doing, I'm a politics, right?
Yeah.
So if I always, or most of the time, consciously, you know, look for everybody involved on the issue, which is
Mm-hmm.
would be
Unity. Mm-hmm.
To me would be envision globally and act locally.
Okay. Have a global vision. Act.
Yes.
Think global. Act local.
Yeah, but always connected with the
Mm-hmm.
whole, with the global, with the planet.
I'll steal that thought for the end because I think it's interesting. Thank you. I'll come back to that. Anybody else want to share? Good politics? No? Don't be shy.
You wait for me to say something?
Yeah.
Just like piggyback off what he was saying a little bit, more unity. Like we have these politics in our everyday lives, like governing our own
Mm-hmm.
situations, and we do have, you know, open-mindedness and putting others into the equation other than just your nation, like she said, globally.
Mm-hmm.
Globally. So whether your group of associates are all doing whatever they're doing, now let's consider collaborating with other associates. And this could be so many different variables. Like, you could just go in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll pick up on that because I think that's interesting about unity and acting together. We said that politics is wherever two or more people have to interact and decide. And to me, it's a paradox that today's vision of politics often it's not that at all. It's just what is my idea and I should fight for it and go for it. And I don't really care what other things because this is my interest and my idea. So that kind of like defeats the purpose of politics itself. It's kind of like, I don't know, if I wanna use this device, but I take the battery out. So I'm not gonna be able to use it. Now, if I play with it like this, I won't be able to use it either. So now, here. What you said, audio, it's basically my way of saying it. I call it public service. So to me, the first idea about good politician and good politics is public service. Now we identify politics with political parties, right? When we think of politics, in particularly in this country, we say Democrats, Republicans, and it seems like that's about it. But for me, as I'm trying to bring here today, it has a very broader meaning. Now we don't. If you see that picture and that comic, would you think of a politician there in that group? You would?
Yes.
You guys would think about a politician being part of that group?
Those are the guys voting for the politicians.
Those are the guys voting, yeah, that's right. And those are the guys following orders from the politicians most of the time too. But it's interesting that I took this from a video that someone made about public service, a very short video to put in value what many people do for the community. And don't really see a politician there. But to me, that should be the first quality of a good politician, to be looking for the public service and only the public service, not special interest or private interest or their own interest or anything like that. So again, I bring this to my own life and to my relationships, and that's when I realize, well, maybe now I start to understand a little bit more some politicians that I dislike, but it is very difficult to do that. It is difficult for me not to think or not to have a motivation many times that has to do with my own interest, even if it's something like, I don't know, as simple as showing off or whatever it is. We read in the paragraph vanity. That's very common, and other motivations. So difficult, but to me this is key. Now the second one would be transparency, and this is another difficult one. I can't say, when I bring this to my life, I can't say that I'm transparent. As I've said other times, a Enneagram type 3 being transparent, that's very difficult. But if you ask me, I would love to be more transparent. Life would be so much easier if I could just, be transparent and be who I am and be able to show that to everyone at all times. That would be amazing. Now, in terms of politics, that's very important. Transparency is very important. This graph I took from an organization that it's called Transparency International. If any of you are at all interested about this topic, this is one of the best non-profits in this field. And what they do is they fight corruption all over the world through transparency, trying to bring transparency. So they have this chart, and this is what they call corruption perceptions index for every country in the world. This is 2020 or 2021. I think it's 2020. But anyway, it doesn't change much. Now you can see the perceived less corrupt countries, so most transparent countries are some of the Nordics in Europe and New Zealand and Singapore. And then from there, if you want to find this country, the US is number 27 in the world. And Brazil is number 96. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but because this is serious. But Brazil is number 96. Spain and Portugal are 35, so not good either. So I was thinking today, after I saw this is a good measure when I am like doubting about a public discussion or some kind of issue. It could be public health that nowadays we discuss a lot. Well, go to what any of those countries like on the top are publishing in terms of data and are deciding in terms of public policy, and that's a good way of at least trying to aim for the best of what we have when I want to make an informed decision about one of these hot topics. Why? Simply because they use transparency the most, and that means that the decisions that they make are based upon open data. Basically, everything is in the open, or as much as possible, everything is in the open, and you can track where the decisions that are being made come from, based on which data, and you can measure things. You can't improve anything, any system, anything, unless you measure. And you can't measure if you don't have data and if you don't have transparency. And it comes to what it says here, trust. Now, I think one of the greatest enemies for democracy and even for any relationship, any human relationship, put it at any level that you want, it's the lack of trust. And the greatest tool that we have to build trust is transparency. That's why, to me, in politics and in life, transparency it's so important. It's also related to something that we bring up here quite often, and it's free will. We are exercising our free will. How can we exercise our free will if we don't know what we're talking about, if we don't have data, if we don't have open information, if we don't open our information for others to make informed decisions with their free will when they are interacting with us. So all of that is very important. Now, not forgetting where we are, of course, I thought about this, Jesus, because when we think, of course, those two, public service and transparency, were my ideas of good politician, good politics. But I always think, what about Jesus? What did he do? How can I see an example of that? And this is the first question that came to mind. Was Jesus a politician? What do you think? Would you say he was a politician or he wasn't a politician? Anyone? Ana? ¿Se acha que sí? Oh, sorry. Went to Portuguese. What do you guys think? Do we see him as a politician? Yes?
I don't know. I don't think so. They're similar. They preach to a lot of crowds.
Uh-huh. I agree with you. I don't think we see him as a politician. I think he was a politician. And because he was a master of human relations. So, and he practiced politics. He was killed in a political, or condemned to death in a political trial. So he was doing politics at many levels. And of course, I just bring this here because we tend to have a very bad image of politicians. And even I hear this a lot. We have this idea that all politicians are bad. They're all evil. They're all corrupt. There's no good politician. I hear this a lot. Well, I can disagree with that because Jesus was a politician and he was very good. And many others, of course. Fortunately, we have really, I think, really good examples that most of us can, agree upon. Now, I'd like to ask you, do you think, we were talking about making informed decisions, you think you build your opinions, you make your opinions reflecting and really thinking twice about things, or don't think much, just pick up what's there, what's out there, and go with the flow? What do you think? So who believes himself, herself, makes decisions, thinking them thoroughly, and kind of, you're going to use this word, independently? Raise your hand if you want to. Okay, about 30%, more or less. Okay, I think that's consistent with one experiment, and I thought this was very interesting. This was done in 1951. It's called the conformity ash experiment or study. Now, the the study consisted on having one person who was didn't know anything about this experiment, brought into a room with a bunch of other people who 8, 9, 10 people who were actors, and they were given a question. Now the actors had a script on what they had to say, and the question was pretty basic. Basically, what is the line that looks more, which line does the target line look like the most? It's more similar to. And the answer is pretty obvious, but these actors, they were told to give a different answer. So sometimes it was A, and sometimes it was B. Now, 75% of the people that the test subjects, they gave the wrong answer, even though it's pretty obvious that the answer is C. They gave the wrong answer just because a bunch of other people, 6, 7, 8, 9 people before them had given a wrong answer. And that's what I mean. In this context, it becomes really difficult to even communicate, to even, I come back to the beginning, to have that discussion, to even bring any topic that has to do with politics or religion or any of those things, because we tend to form an opinion and following whatever group we think it resonates with us, it's right, whatever, and we tend to block anything else. And this is what we saw. Basically, people did it for two. They conformed with the group for two reasons. Most of them, it was because of the influence. So that makes sense with this show of hands that we had here. And some, it was just because they thought they didn't know the answer, or the other people would know better than them. But this was a minority. Most of them, it was just because they wanted to go with what the majority was saying, even though they knew it was wrong. So you block that, and you don't want to look kind of weird. You want to be part of a group, and that makes the discussion very difficult. Now, coming towards the end, I think the question is, what can I do? Does this have any impact on me? And sometimes we tend to think, well, what's the point? We have the government, we have the system. I'm just a citizen. Yeah, I can vote, but beyond that, it seems like I can't do much. Think about that paragraph that we read from Minutes of Wisdom. We all have an immense power. We are all shaping whatever is happening. And that's why, that's part of the good news on why the world is evolving like that. I really don't want to see a war, a big global confrontation like World War I or World War II. And we have not known this in our lives. And this is probably the longest period in the history of our civilization where we have not seen a confrontation at a global scale for so many years. So that's a good news, and that's because of each one of us, because of our energy and what we do and the example we give. So we do have a great impact. Now, think about things like opening spaces for those discussions. Just as I said at the beginning, just listening, just thinking, well, I believe that I will not agree with you, but I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I'm going to ask questions about, but not questions trying to torpedo your ideas. Honest curiosity questions. That doesn't mean I have to agree with you. And what that does is it fights prejudgment, which is something we all have. We all have our own set of ideas, preformed set of ideas, and we bring them to any discussion, and then there can't be any discussion. So listening, understanding, being empathic with others that don't think like us, that have different ideas, does not mean we agree with them. It doesn't. It just opens a space for that. Think about that paradigm on politics. On one side, conquer, maintain, and exercise power. On the other side, reach for agreements. Both are politics, both are two different ways. So try to think with every interaction we have, what am I in for? Am I in for being right? Am I in for trying to make things better? Because we have to live with each other. I mean, you can kill people. It's not going to help. We're going to come back. Doesn't help. We have to fix our differences through politics. We need to do that. So my point here is try to do it the best we can. And to finalize, I'll steal the idea of think globally, act locally, because it made me see it, that sentence. I've heard that 100 million times. And today, for the first time, I saw it differently, in under a different light. When we think globally, when we think that we are all connected, when we think that we are all one, we are bringing our spiritual life, our principles from our spiritual life, from us, not as this body, not as Juan or Jota or Aure or Cynthia, whatever, but as spirits. We bring this. That's what think globally means. Bring your morals, you were saying. As a spirit, we all have those high aspirations for ourselves. We all have that dream of becoming better, of being more just, of doing more good, of building a more just society. We all have that for ourselves. That's what think globally means. Bring those principles, bring those ideas of us from our spiritual life into our material life. And material life, that's locally, because that's where we are now. Locally, we are located at these bodies, in this matter, in this moment here. And this is, we have to act here. You can think about acting spiritually, but the fact is that we are all in here, and we need to do this, and we need to do it locally, meaning we need to do it in the material world. So bring those principles from the spiritual world as much as we can to the material world. And it's very difficult, and it's super difficult for me. And that made me think that, I have a different vision of politicians after reflecting upon these things. And this is what I bring today. Think spiritually, act materially, and have a good night. Thank you.
I didn't know I was a politician.